Hey everyone, welcome back to Liftoff with Jeanniey Walden. I'm your host, Jeanniey Walden. We've got another great 30 minutes packed with content to help you improve your life, your business, and your overall outlook. We've got guests from all areas of life to share their insights, advice, and stories. So let's get right to the fun with our first guest. Canadian actress and businesswoman Sabrina Strasser is the founder of Sabi Chic, a high-quality fashion-forward brand. She is best known for her role on the Bravo series Dancing Queens and here to share her experiences and entrepreneurial spirit. Sabrina, welcome to Liftoff.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. Thanks for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
Sabrina, you were on the cast of Bravo's Dancing Queens, which has the tagline, "All is fair in war and ballroom." That's crazy. And this is such a cool show. Tell us some of the most competitive and challenging aspects of the ballroom dance world. What can viewers expect to see when they tune into the show?
So, what you have to remember watching the show is that basically these are normal women who are moms, who are working women, who are business owners, who have a life outside of ballroom. And basically, we are not professionals. We hire professionals to dance with us in a competitive stream. So, what's beautiful about it is that you see normal women juggle their day to day lives along with being so competitive in this sport. And once you get addicted to ballroom, you are comrades outside of the ballroom. But once you hit that floor, it's showing the fierce competitiveness and that all is fair in Warren Ballroom. Like we are there to win it.
Yeah, and it's so great for any woman in business, in an entrepreneurial world, or just in life, even with things outside of the dance floor, like your loungewear and dance accessory brand, Savvy Chic. Tell us about the inspiration behind it and the unique needs that it caters to for both ballroom dancers and the modern woman.
Yeah, of course. So during COVID, I was really bored. All competitions were canceled. There was really no outlet for me anymore. And I realized, what can I do that I still love while bringing fashion forward stuff to dancers? So I designed a line called Sabi Chic. Basically, it's my name, my nickname, Sabi and Chic. And I wanted to bring dancers utility in their dance world. So, I always needed a good carry-on. I always needed a good bag from the plane to the ballroom. I needed something machine washable. And basically it did really well in the dance world, but it also did well outside of the dance world. It just took off in a sense that everybody can use it. They're very versatile and business is hard, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
Your advice is spot on. And Sabrina, thank you so much for being on the show
Right.
and best of luck with your brand.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Well, dance your way through this break, but don't forget to stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Next up, it is a festival of amazing J's. We are joined by Jim Poole, President and CEO of NuCalm, and Jim Kwik, world-renowned brain coach and author of New York Times bestseller, Limitless Expanded. Upgrade your brain, learn anything faster, and unlock your exceptional life. These two Jims are here with us to talk about tips on stress management, sleep improvement, and so much more. Jim Poole, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about how we can manage stress and improve sleep quality without drugs.
We have a technology that's been built out of 33 years of neuroscience, patents, research, and it is a technology now that is accessible, affordable, and easy to use in a mobile app, literally creating the remote control for your brain. And essentially what it does is we use music as a carrier to your ears, but underneath the music is complex software with mathematics and algorithms presenting your brain with a signal that either slows down your brainwave to relax, restore, and recover, or increase your brainwave to focus. Since the dawn of humankind, Jeannie, humans have either discovered or created ways to change their state. I'm not even sure we're even aware of this, but if we're tired, we'll have caffeine. If we're struggling psychically, we might have alcohol. If we're depressed, we take an antidepressant. If we're anxious, we take anti-anxiety. If we have trouble sleeping, we take sleeping pills. This is a method with no drugs, no side effects to allow you to regulate your brainwave up or down to whatever outcome you select.
All right. Well, Jim Kwik, tell us about your new book that's coming out in November. Is it going to be called Limitless?
It is. It's Limitless expanded, and I'm a big fan of NuCalm. It's like a secret weapon. It's almost an unfair advantage. I believe all learning is state dependent, and when you could access state of calm, restore, to be able to get into flow states and focus, it's such an incredible resource. Yeah, I 30 years of doing this, I've been a brain coach. I had a traumatic brain injury when I was 5 years old, and you could say that my struggles end up becoming my strengths. And I believe everybody could improve their brain power, regardless of their age, their background, their career, education level, gender, history, IQ. It's I wrote this book to be an owner's manual for the brain to help people have the best brain possible, to help them to focus, to be able to improve their memory, help them read faster, and so much more.
Can you leave us with just one tip that you would give everybody when they are trying to become limitless and harness their strength from a personal or professional standpoint? What would you say?
I could go first. There's a quote in my book, Limitless, that says, life is the letter C between B and D, where B stands for birth, D stands for death, life, C, choice. And so I believe that these difficult times, they could diminish us. These difficult times can distract us, or these difficult times can develop us. We always decide. And one choice we can make is just asking us this question: is this good for my brain, or is this bad for my brain? Going throughout the day, is this good for what I'm eating, who I'm spending time with, what I'm watching, what I'm drinking? Is this good for my brain, or it's not so good for my brain? And that little distinction could help you become more limitless, for sure.
And mine will accentuate his, and that is, in today's world where we're at the highest levels of anxiety and stress and poor sleep, do not overlook the importance of balance and taking time to take care of you. Your to-do list is not more important than your health and longevity, your resilience. So stress management, though it may be obtuse and hard to understand and quantify, it's real and it's challenging all of us. So take care of yourselves, because if you manage stress, you improve your sleep. If you improve your sleep, you improve your wellness.
Thank you so much for both being on the show. This was incredible and very inspiring.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. If that didn't get you going, there's more to come after the break. We are back, and our next guest, Doug Zarkin, is a highly acclaimed marketing expert. So, I'm thrilled to have him on the show. He's got a multitude of awards to his name. He's the author of Moving Your Brand Out of the Friend Zone, a title I absolutely love, and it is for every single person that is listening right now, no matter where you are in your career. This book is going to help you win at marketing everything. Welcome to Liftoff, Doug.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Great to see you. And Doug, you don't know, but I've secretly been stalking you on LinkedIn. And we are connected in the marketing community to so many people that have just been raving about you and about this book.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled to have you.
It's a really small network. Great people who get together, can share great thoughts. And the book for me was kind of the culmination of getting great insights from people I've worked with, people that I've admired, and in places that I've been.
Yeah, and I love one of the things you have in your book are so many images and examples of real life brands. So it's not just theory, you actually show us where it gets put to use.
It's crazy when you ask somebody simple questions like, what's the difference between a product and a brand? They will give you a 20-minute answer. Yeah. And being able to take the complexity and make it simple is the start of really finding great solutions.
Yeah, so tell me, what are the top 3 most important tips in your book that anybody can immediately benefit?
So the first thing is recognizing that consumers make emotional decisions before they make rational choices. So as we think about connecting with consumers, we want to make sure we're talking about them as people and appealing to them as people, not just rattling off a list of different things. The second thing is we have to realize that data doesn't make decisions, because data is only as good as the questions you ask. Marketers and leaders make decisions using data, but you've got to know what questions to ask in order to get data that is most meaningful. And then the third thing is, I like to call it thinking human, which is the idea of treating every customer that walks into your door as if they were your only customer. What amazing experience would you curate if that was the case?
Yeah, I love that second point that you said about you need to ask the right questions to get the data, and then you need to use the data to ask the right questions and figure out how to build the brand off of that.
I mean, you can't get 5 people to tell you if it's warm or cold outside when the temperature is 60 degrees, but you can ask a question if you do it the right way to get somebody to give you really what they're feeling. And part of knowing how to ask those questions is getting out from behind your computer, get into your brand, experience your brand, engage with your consumers, and then bring that insight back to the boardroom to help you create great strategies.
I love it. I love it. So what's an attention-getting statement or a big thought on your subject matter that would make readers take notice of why what you're talking about is so critically important?
It's not enough just to be friends. We live in a commoditized like culture. Think about when you're going through your social platform, you're putting hearts or you're checking likes just to be part of the conversation. It's not enough to be part of the conversation. You need to be engaged in that conversation. So you really have to think about creating brand love.
And so what is the key to cultivating that brand love and not just that brand friendship?
Realizing that trust, which is really one of the core tenets to creating brand love, isn't through grand gestures. It's through small moments of care and connection. It's those little things that you don't think mean a lot, that when you look at the sum of those marginal gains, really creates amazing, passionate relationships and really strong trust bonds between people.
So your favorite small moment?
For me, it's when you get a random phone call of somebody just saying thank you. It doesn't cost you anything to take 2 minutes. Thank you is probably the 2 most powerful words in the English language. But if you go to a place of business and you get a random phone call or a random handwritten note saying thanks for taking advantage of our product or service, it means so much.
So biggest takeaway from the book that everybody needs to know, not a spoiler alert though, what would you say?
Biggest takeaway is that today, to create long-lasting relationships, you have to play the long game. Grand gestures don't garner love. Grand gestures garner favor. Sum of small moments create incredible trust bonds, incredible trusting relationships, and that's how you win.
I feel like we could talk forever about this because I have so many questions to ask you about how to build a brand, how to build a personal brand, how to build a brand when you're coming out of college, how to build a brand if you're a business, big or small. But right now, we're going to have to go to other guests. So come back maybe.
Thank you for having me.
It was so much.
Great to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And everybody stay tuned because we are going to be right back as promised. Patrick Ward is the VP of Marketing at Formula.Monks, the technology services division of Media.Monks. Patrick has been featured in the New York Times because he's so fabulous, Ad Age, Fast Company, Huffington Post, Business Insider, and many more, including he is a peer of mine on the Forbes Communication Council. I am so excited to have him here today. Patrick, welcome to Liftoff.
Thanks for having me, Jeannie.
All right, we've been talking forever about having you come on the show, and you're finally here in the chair. It's in real life. I'm so excited. So many questions to ask you. Let's talk about marketing. Let's talk about marketers, and let's see what excitement we can create out there. Sound
Yeah,
good?
absolutely.
All right. All right. Marketers often seem the most vulnerable to layoffs. I know it. You know it. I can tell you how many times I've had to lay people off or gone through it. Yet their efforts are so critical to company successes. How did we get here? When did marketing become the commodity that can be let go in times of challenging economics?
So the funny thing about marketing is if you look at like the last 20 years, marketers have had to learn so many new things. No field has changed more than ours. We've had to learn data, we've had to learn digital, we've had to learn social. Meanwhile, other fields, I'll use an example like accounting, they're still using the same double entry accounting that they've always used. And in the rush and the shiny object syndrome that some of the best marketers often love to embrace something new, they love to innovate, but that race to go to this new thing or this task means that they inadvertently sell against themselves, they commoditize themselves, and they're not aligning themselves with the business that really matters.
It's so interesting and it's so true. In fact, I say to my teams all the time, nobody ever questions what the CFO says when they stand up there and talk about their results. But when a marketer stands up and talks about their results, good or bad, all of a sudden everybody else in the room is marketer and everybody else can do it better. But I think there's really some unique ways, and I know that you know them, to make sure that marketers are almost bulletproof. But let's start with what they're doing wrong. What is the biggest mistake that most marketers make that cripples their efforts for advancement budget?
So the biggest problem is they're actually over-educating. And we say this all the time, the concept of educating your customer, educating your stakeholder. And while that is a wonderful tendency, the fact of the matter is the other business leaders, like you mentioned, the CFO, They don't care. They want to use a common language. And so by trying to get people to understand what marketing is, what you're all about, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. You would be better off changing your approach towards what are the metrics I could understand and use that language. How can I speak the CFO's language? How can I speak my sales leader's language? How can I speak my CEO's language? When you start doing that, you're not going to sell against yourself, as opposed to shouting from the rooftops of, hey, marketing is about X. That is not the way to do it. When you do marketing is all the wonderful things, people's eyes glaze over because they just want to know how your function contributes to the business.
If you were to give 3 tips of advice outside of this one for marketers to stamp their authority in the workplace, what would it be?
So I think the biggest one here is about appreciating marketing's superpower. We spend all our time obsessed about our customers. We obsess about how people think, how people buy, and yet we somehow forget that same thing when we're applying it to our internal stakeholders. Like, use that superpower, because so many other functions don't actually think deeply about the psychological ramifications. If we apply that same tactic to our CEOs and our boards, suddenly we're going to have a lot more authority. Then doubling down on that, rather than trying to do 100 different things, like we talked about the shiny object syndrome. Actually, can you find the 3 things that matter, that really drive the business forward? Because the funny thing is, a lot of marketers don't realize this. Once you get to that end of the year and you've driven that success, no one's going to remember the 99 things you didn't do, as long as you did a couple of things really impactfully. And the final thing is learning those financial metrics. Like you say, I love that example of take a marketing dashboard and put it into the language that other people can understand. Because when you start speaking the same language as all the other business leaders, suddenly you have that seat at the table. Suddenly you have more influence and you are able to drive the outcomes forward, not just for your business, but for your entire team. And I know many marketing leaders love to dedicate the entire craft to serving their team. That's how you serve them best.
I love it. These are brilliant. And I feel like now you need to write a book about this because speak like a CFO, put everything in financial terms, focus on the top 3 things. You're right. Nobody thinks about the 99 things that didn't get done. And the third one, understand your audience. Key to marketers in our day-to-day jobs. Why don't we do that while we're marketing in the office as well? These are amazing. These are amazing. Patrick, thank you so much for being on Liftoff. I am sure you just changed a whole bunch of people's lives.
Thanks, Jeannie.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. If those tips didn't get you, we're going to give you some more great info right after the break. Welcome back. Robert Kesten is Executive Director of Stonewall National Museum, Archives and Library. Prior to that, he traveled the world promoting the integration of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. His eclectic career includes stints working on Ukrainian independence, human rights in Egypt and Tunisia, theater producing, a run for political office, and a nightclub act in Beverly Hills. Now, that is a span right there. We are very happy to have such a Renaissance man joining us. Robert, welcome to Liftoff.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Robert, it's obvious to me, and I'm sure many of our viewers, why this conversation is still so important in our society. But I'd love to hear from your perspective. Why is an organization like Stonewall so important today?
Well, it's important because history is important. Culture is important. So an organization that collects, preserves, and shares history, even if it's of one large group, is vitally important so that we get a full perspective on what that means going forward.
And tell us about Stonewall's education project and task force. It sounds fascinating.
Well, the task force will have its first meeting the end of November in Washington, D.C. And the idea is very simple, that we've all believed that education was supposed to be the panacea through which we eliminated hate and prejudice. And clearly that's not the case. There's hate and prejudice everywhere. And at moments it surges to unrecognizable positions in our society. So if education didn't solve that problem, then what are the root causes that are preventing us from solving that problem? And how do we find those root causes so we don't just keep applying Band-Aids to an infection that continues to break through, causing harm, death, and fear and anger across the United States and around the world?
So you must have so much information in the archives, but tell us a little bit about what you know are in Stonewall's archives relating to exactly everything you've talked about and what's going on today.
Well, one example is we have a letter from Bob Dole where he crucifies President Clinton on thinking that LGBTQ people should be able to serve in the military. So that's one example. Then we have tremendous amounts of documents that chronicle the years of AIDS and HIV and how many extraordinarily talented people died. And that uniquely ties in to the amount of money that governments historically have invested in oppressing people, Blacks, women here in the United States, for example, rather than investing in those populations. Because just imagine, in all those years of slavery, 400 some odd years of slavery, all the years that women were considered property or second-class citizens, had we invested the same billions and billions of dollars that were used to repress, imagine where this country would be today. And that's the same kind of thing that we do on a smaller scale, looking at that oppression and negative funding that went into keeping LGBTQ people out of things rather than inviting them in to use the skills and talents that they have.
That is a lot to consider, absolutely, and so critical and fascinating. Robert, thank you so much for sharing what you're doing at Stonewall and how we can just take an active role in using our history to define our future. Thank you so much for being on Liftoff.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, everybody, we will be right back with some exciting new guests. Health and wellness are the cornerstones of a successful life, and you know that, and I do too. And the emerging trend of genetic testing is crucial for catching problems before they can slow us down or worse. Our next guest is a certified genetic counselor and outreach coordinator for JScreen, a national nonprofit Jewish genetic disease screening program. Estie Rose joins us to give us more information. Welcome to Liftoff, Estie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Estie, tell us all about your role as a genetic counselor. It sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it actually is. So as a genetic counselor, I assess people's risks and their children's risk to have a genetic disease. So I talk to my patients about why I think there might be something genetic going on. We talk about the risks and the benefits of finding out whether there's something genetic by doing genetic testing. And then when the results are ready, we talk about them and we make a plan for the future.
And there's so many reasons why you would want to have genetic screening, but I know one of the reasons a lot of people do it is to get reproductive genetic screening and cancer screening. Why do you think those two are the most important types of screening to get right now?
So reproductive carrier screening is recommended, and it's important for anybody who's planning to either start their family or add to their family. Most people do carry genetic diseases, but we don't have any symptoms of those diseases. So we have no idea that we're carriers. So it's very important that when two parents are thinking about, starting a family, they both get tested just to make sure that they're not carriers for the same condition. If that does happen where they both carry the same thing, then their kids would actually be at risk to have the condition. The cancer genetics world is very, very different. Cancer genetic screening is for people who want to know whether they have an inherited or a genetic risk to get cancer one day. This kind of testing is good for people who have a family history of cancer or a personal history, or just for people who want to know whether there's a higher chance to get cancer. And if they do end up having a positive result, they can use this information to make important decisions about their health, and they can speak to their doctor about managing their health care.
And if there's one thing that our viewers should remember about screenings and genetic testing, other than you should seriously consider this, what should it be?
Everybody who is planning to have a child needs to do this test. It doesn't make a difference what their background is. anybody planning to have a child needs to do it because it's just a spit, like we do all the testing now by spitting into a tube. You don't even need to go to get your blood drawn at the doctor's office. It's so easy and it's so simple, and it can save your life and your children's lives.
So powerful. And it sounds like just something we should all do and seriously consider at different points in our life. Estie, thank you so much for the great information, and thanks for being on Liftoff.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Our next guest today is going to bring some much needed zen into our hectic lives, especially this time of the year. Sarah V is an internationally known visionary, energy facilitator, manifesting expert, and the #1 best-selling author of I Wish I'd Known. Sarah helps her followers be poised for greatness, and she is here to help us do the same. I can't wait to have her help me manifest something great. Welcome to Liftoff, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, it is such a pleasure to be here with you. This is exciting.
What is your #1 tip to stay grounded? Because I could use it.
There's a practice that I practice all the time, and it's actually a practice called future pulling. And to stay grounded, you kind of imagine yourself before any event. In a scene. If you're meditating, that would be great. But you kind of imagine yourself in an event of the way that you want it to go. Like I see myself in this, non-overwhelming feeling. My family is there, and I'm really connected to the connection of family, and actually seeing yourself as if it's already happening. And what happens is that you start to step into that energy of what we want to experience rather than what we don't want. And, we get into the chaos of overwhelm.
Okay, well, we've heard that you have a very unique cookbook launching any day now. Can you share a bit about that?
Absolutely. So this is my 3rd book. My first book was the best-selling children's book of the year. And then my other book was a memoir. But this one, it's called Sacred Kitchen, Abundant Plate. And it's something very unique and different. And what I'm kind of calling it is a luxury, holistic lifestyle book that kind of intertwines the arts of high vitality food, meditative practices, food alchemy, and, living a really passionate life. So that you can live, in unparalleled abundance. So it's kind of a mixture of it, but it's something very different that I'm really thrilled about because it's different and it's really upscaling me to a completely different level.
Thanks for being on Liftoff, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody, you've got your tips. You are ready to roll and take on anything. What a show. That is it for us today. I hope you learned something that you can apply personally or professionally to give you more happiness and more success. Be sure to follow us on social and tell us what you want to see more of. Until next time, I'm Jeanniey Walden.